So far in this series, we focus a lot on the superstars. Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Kevin Durant. These are all names that even someone who knows nothing about basketball can probably recognize. However, this series doesn't exist within reality. And while the rise and fall of many players is similar, that isn't the case for everyone. Think about the circumstances it took for a 60th overall pick like Isaiah Thomas to go from almost being counted out to being a top 5 MVP candidate. Or how about someone like Jeremy Lin, who went undrafted and had to prove every single day that he belonged to the NBA. And when he got his chance to shine, he did just that on the biggest stage there is in Madison Square Garden. These are the kinds of players that everyone loves to see. The underdog that was counted out who proves his worth and exceeds far past his expectations. And no one embodies this archetype better in our ReSimulated series than Doron Lamb. Doron Lamb was one of the 5 players from Kentucky to put their names in the 2012 draft, after winning the NCAA championship and finishing the year with a mind-blowing 38-2 record. Their team was headlined with Terrence Jones, Marcus Teague, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, and of course future NBA superstar Anthony Davis. Out of all his teammates, Doron was the very last player to have been selected by the Milwaukee Bucks, with the 52nd pick. In real life, Doron was also drafted by the Bucks, then traded to the Magic, and was out of the league in 3 years after playing just 100 career games. In our simulation, he started out a little bit better in Milwaukee this time, averaging 10 points a game in his rookie year. In his second season, he was given the spot of starting shooting guard and averaged 16 points a game. However, the Bucks wanted to focus more on their superstar DeMarcus Cousins, and believed Doron was taking too many shots away from him. So they traded him to the Knicks, where he started to go off, averaging 22 points, then 25, and then 23 in his 3 seasons with them. While his stat line may have been impressive, Doron Lamb's amazing ability wasn't enough to get the Knicks in the playoffs, and they were consistently at the bottom of the league, while they drafted bum after bum. New York was beginning to grow tired of the constant losses, and were itching to start something new. But Lamb and Victor Oladipo were their only valuable trade pieces. Luckily for them, there's a superstar who was no longer enjoying his time in Texas and wanted out. New York saw their opportunity and threw everything they had at Houston to bring Russell Westbrook to Madison Square Garden. They offered Doron Lamb and all their first-round picks, along with some younger future prospects. Surprisingly, the Rockets accepted, and Russell Westbrook would be heading to New York City. So how did Doron Lamb fare in Houston? To say he fared well would be an understatement. Doron would take his talents to a whole new level, and averaged nearly 30 points while helping seed the Rockets at 7. He not only made his first All-Star team, but he also won MIP. But if you thought he had a great regular season, you were not prepared for what's about to happen next. The Rockets will be facing the 2nd seed Sacramento Kings, who've consistently been a solid playoff matchup, but can never make it past the first round with their star combo of Paul George and Gordon Hayward. Houston would take Game 1 as Doron Lamb drops 36 points. And in Game 2, Lamb would score 43. But even his last-minute go-ahead 3 wasn't enough to stop the Kings from tying the series at 1 apiece. Both teams win another game, and going into Game 5 it was 2-2. This game would come down to the wire, as the Kings are up by 3 with a little over a minute left. Lamb takes it up, and decides to trust Vucevic with the rock in the paint. Big mistake. Adams shuts him down, and he's forced to pass it back out to Lamb, who throws up a shot with all the D in his face, but manages to make it. PG takes it back up the floor, but Lamb strips and goes the other way. He takes it up for the wide open layup, but misses completely. The Kings come back the other way and find Aaron Gordon by the rim, who slams it in, which would end up being the nail in the coffin for this Rockets team. Despite scoring 43 and 42 in the last 2 games, Lamb would fail to get the Rockets out of the first round. Even though the Rockets lost, it is clear they had a potential superstar in Lamb, who wound up averaging 37.5 points in the playoffs. His quick release and deadly accuracy from behind the arc was unmatched. Well, unmatched except for maybe one guy that Joe might have heard of, and his name is Stephen Curry. The Golden State Warriors have been led by their superstar duo of Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant for 7 years now. When Durant arrived in the 2011 offseason, Curry took a back seat to His Highness and started to fall off a little. In fact, when the Warriors won a championship in 2013, Durant got injured halfway into the series, but Curry couldn't handle the pressure and let Monta Ellis take the lead, and Monta Ellis ended up winning Finals MVP. This season, however, Curry steps his game up and starts shooting like he's never done before. By the end of the season, he would end up massively overtaking Durant, and averaged nearly 35 points a game as the Warriors would easily clinch the first seed in the Western Conference. They would face the Denver Nuggets in the first round, and would have swept them in 4 games if it weren't for Gary Payton II stepping out of bounds with 5 seconds left. Keep this moment in mind, it'll be very important later on. Since they couldn't win in 4, they settled for winning in 5, and we headed on to the second round. We now just have 2 series left in the Western Conference. There isn't much to talk about with the Mavericks and Thunder. James Harden was the only star left out in OKC, and was outclassed by the duo of Anthony Davis and Carmelo Anthony. The last matchup was last year's unexpected finalist in the Minnesota Timberwolves, who would be facing the LA Lakers, who had not made a playoff appearance since 2012. However, this year, they're looking much better, as Devin Booker was starting to break out this year, and they also signed Paul Millsap, who was a very underrated pickup. There was a lot of talk that Millsap was past his prime. However, in Game 2, Millsap would prove all the doubters wrong, as he dropped bucket after bucket to keep the Lakers in the game. It would all come down to this miserable floater from Kyle Anderson, which would obviously miss, and unfortunately the Lakers couldn't handle the Wolves in OT. The Lakers would get the last laugh, however, as they would end up winning the series in 6. Out east, the Raptors smoked the Wizards in 4 games, as Blake Griffin, DeMar DeRozan, and Kemba Walker go off. The Celtics would be facing the Magic, and while they seemed to have the advantage, the Celtics' second best player, Nikola Jokic, would be out for the season, and they'd have to rely on the rest of their elite team to carry them through. Orlando had a magic trio of Chris Middleton, Domantas Sabonis, and Anthony Bennett, who became a borderline all-star in the simulation, as he didn't have the pressure of being the number 1 pick, and wasn't brought into a dead organization like Cleveland. The match took Game 1, but Game 2 would be anybody's game. CP3 would show off his talents as an elite playmaker as he finds Sarge in the corner for a 3, finds Lopez at the last minute in the paint, and finds him again off the pick and roll. Unfortunately though, Anthony Bennett would seal the game with his N1, and some well-timed free throws. While the Celtics come back in the next 2 games, Orlando would prove to be too much and win the series in 6. The next series would be the young Detroit Pistons and their deadly duo of Jabari Parker and Kawhi Leonard versus last year's champions in the Philadelphia 76ers. However, this wasn't the same Sixers team of the past. It really seemed like they'd been striving so hard for 8 straight years to win, and now that they'd finally done it, their team was so broken and bruised they couldn't push through like they used to before. And it didn't help that their star player in Dwayne Wade was 36, and had some serious battles with injuries this year. They'd end up dropping to the 7th seed, but were still seen as potential contenders. After all, they had just won the championship last year, and had the same overall core as before. Unfortunately, age had truly caught up with them, and they lost the series in 6. However, we did get to see Dwayne Wade hit a patented game-winning fadeaway in the paint. This was a bittersweet moment. It was clear that the Sixers were no longer contenders like they once were. However, this is also the true start of a new chapter. A chapter where these young bloods are becoming the faces of the league. Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Chris Bosh. All these guys' best years are behind them. And while there were still top talents in the league, they were no longer the guys. Because, you see, the NBA now had a new face of the league. A player who had been dominating for years in smaller teams. But now is brought into the basketball mecca. That's right. We're talking about the 2018 MVP, Russell Westbrook.
Stay in the trap, get racks every day. She fuck with me now, I told her too late. My hook in the water, she liking my babe. Ain't saving a hoe, I don't wear a cape. You beef with me, don't think you ever say. If I hop in the foreign and drive like a race. We sipping the Henny, I don't need a chase. We dodging the feds and catching no case. I stay in the trap, get racks every day. She fuck with me now, I told her to lay. My hook in the water, she liking my babe. Ain't saving a hoe, I don't wear a cave. You beef with me, don't think you ever save. I hop in the foreign and drive like a race. We sipping the Henny, I don't need a chase. We dodging the feds and catching no case. I sky on blue hundreds, always make my day. I slide on your block, I hop on my sleigh. I pray to God I make it home to the day. Stop trying to get me and lock me away. You act like you tough, what you trying to betray. I fuck a good route, but she wanna stay. Since we lost the car, you gotta take care of Tay. I ask for him back every time that I pray. My crew pull up deep just like a parade. These niggas is bugs, I go get my raid. I got you in shock through the thought that I tased him. Bro tickets back, hell no, we ain't pay him. That ain't your bro, cause he easy betrayed him. Shawty finesse, she easy persuade. But never appreciate the shit that I gave him. Brody was wildin', so they had to cage him.
Look, I know. I labeled this video the one about the underdogs. But what can I say? The NBA is a superstar stud of the league. And right now, Russell Westbrook was the guy. He led the Knicks to be the top team in the East during his first year on the team, after they'd missed the playoffs for the past 7 years. Despite only being 6'3", Russ looked like a man among boys. For their first round matchup, the Knicks would be facing the Cleveland Cavaliers, who actually had a very talented roster, including Bradley Beal, Andrew Wiggins, and aging Dwight Howard. The Knicks would steamroll through the first 4 games and would be up 3-1. However, tragedy struck, as Westbrook would have to sit out in Game 5 with severe tendonitis in his left knee, and it didn't appear like it was going away soon. New York would manage to win the series in 6 games, but this did not bode well for the next round. The Knicks would catch a break in the second round, as they'd be facing the Orlando Magic, who weren't a bad team by any means, but they were much worse than the other teams in the East. With Westbrook still out, the rest of the Knicks squad picked up the slack and won Game 1, with Brandon Knight and Victor Oladipo being the stars of the show. Game 2 was a much closer game, as Anthony Bennett showed up on both sides of the floor. In the closing minutes, Bennett not only taps in a putback, but he stuffs Mike Scott's poor attempt in the paint, and comes back on the other end and bodies Knight in the middle, to put the Magic up by 3. The Knicks responded by finding Oladipo in the paint, who gets fouled and knocks in both his free throws. Raul Neto dribbles the ball out to milk the time off the clock, and finds Middleton in isolation. The Knicks trust rookie Josh Jackson with the defensive matchup on Chris. Jackson has been great in New York so far, and was chosen for the all-rookie second team, with his defense being cited as his strongest ability. And in these closing minutes he proves his worth, as he strips the ball away from the driving Middleton. Larry Sanders picks up the rock, and finds Oladipo spot up in the corner for a 3, and he knocks it in. This gives the Magic only 3 seconds to either tie it up or take a 3 to win it. However, Chris Middleton chokes and can't score, and the Knicks are up 2-0. That was all the fuel Oladipo and the crew needed, as they breezed through the rest of the series, winning it in 5. The other Eastern Conference matchup was a lot more competitive between the Pistons and Raptors, as was evident by Game 1 where the Raptors were up by 1 with less than a minute left. Terrence Ross takes advantage of a mismatch and jukes toward the rim to bait rookie Jarrett Allen, then pops a shot right over his head to put Toronto up by 3. Jabari Parker finds his way into the paint on the other end and scores a floater with 30 seconds to go. Unfortunately for Detroit, the Raptors have got one of the best mid-range shooters of all time, as DeMar DeRozan puts up a shot at the elbow in traffic and drains the shot. After some back and forth free throws, the Pistons now only have 20 seconds to come back, and they need a 3. With the defense's concentration being directed all towards Jabari and Kawhi, Tyus Jones finds a way to get open and puts in a 3 to tie the game. DeRozan sprints up the court and finds an opening to cut towards the rim. He drives in and only barely misses the shot, so I guess he'll be going into overtime. With 30 seconds left in OT, the Raptors find Terrence Ross at the 3-point line, and he drills it to put Toronto up by 1. It's alright though, because Detroit still have plenty of time to get up a shot of their own. They end up finding Hassan Whiteside wide open in the paint, but he gets fouled by Cody Zeller, and he'll be going to the free throw line. Whiteside has never been known to be a good free throw shooter, and he made his poor shooting very apparent by missing the first shot. It's alright though, he still has another free... Oh, he misses that too. And just like that, Toronto secures Game 1. Detroit won Game 2 as Kawhi drops 39, but the Raptors come back the next game to go up 2-1. They keep going back and forth the next few games, until we reach Game 7, where Kawhi drops a 40-piece and brings the Pistons to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since 2008. Out west, there really isn't much to say about the Lakers-Warriors matchup. Golden State absolutely trashes them in 4 games, as Curry and Durant both go off. The Mavericks and Kings, however, proved to be a very interesting series, as both teams were considered dark horse contenders this year. The Kings would take Game 1 behind Hayward's 39. However, Melo drops 31 in Game 2 to tie the series up. Game 3 ended up being close, but the Mavericks pull off another win and are now up in the series. Game 4 is also a nail-biter, as the Kings are up by just 1 in the 4th. AD has been cooking them all game, so they decide it's best to throw a double team on him in the closing minutes. He manages to get the ball off to Tobias Harris, who misses the uncontested, unneeded fadeaway. On the other end, the Kings run off-ball screens to get Hayward wide open at the top of the key, and he drills the 3 to put him up by 4. On the other end, PG strips AD on another double team, and the Kings tie the series at 2 apiece. After that loss, Melo's old legs started catching up to him, and the young Kings team will be facing the Golden State Warriors in the upcoming round. The Warriors and Kings proved to be a very interesting matchup, as Golden State obviously had great talents with Curry and Durant. However, that's about as far as their team went. Their next best player is probably, Tristan Thompson? Yeah, not a great team. The Kings, on the other hand, not only had a better overall team, but had the best defense in the league led by PG and Steven Adams. This would prove to be extremely beneficial, as the Kings would take everyone by surprise and start the series off 3-1. They still had to win one more game, however, and that eluded them the next 2 as the Warriors would tie the series at 3. So here we go. It all came down to Game 7. And with a little over a minute, things weren't looking good for Sacramento, as the Warriors were up by 8. That would soon change though, as Gordon Hayward hits his absolute clutch 3 over the outstretched arms of Kevin Durant. After a double team on Curry on the other end, Curry finds Gary Payton II wide open in the corner for 3. And while he misses it, Fareed manages to grab the rebound and put it back in. On the other end, Hayward again finds himself with an inch of space and hits a long 2. The Kings play some stellar defense on the other end, not giving Curry or Durant an inch to do anything, so they're forced to pass it off to Kenneth Fareed, who can't score. Sacramento brings it back and finds Nate Robinson wide open at the top of the key, and he drills the shot to bring them within 3. However, with no time left on the shot clock, and the greatest shooter of all time, it was pretty much a wrap, as Curry gets fouled and drops in both his free throws. The Kings call a timeout, and find Hayward open at the 3-point line. He drives in and puts up a floater, but Aaron Gordon is able to tip in his miss. The Kings manage to block Curry from getting the ball inbounded to him, and they instead find Gary Payton II, who actually manages to hit both his free throws, making a 5-point game yet again. But with a 5-point difference and 17 seconds left, surely there's no way. I stand corrected. PG brings the game within 2, so all they need is a missed free throw and they could still come back. The Kings again deny Curry, and force him to pass into Gary Payton again. This time, Payton buckles under the pressure and misses his first free throw, but makes the second one to bring their lead back up to 3. The Kings have one last timeout, and they use it to drop one of the strangest plays I've ever seen. It ends up working out, however, as Paul George finds himself open for 3, and he misses the game-tying basket, as the Warriors would come back from a 3-1 deficit and would be 2018 NBA finalists. The question is, who would they be facing? The answer should have been pretty obvious, as Westbrook was still out with a sore knee, and the Pistons were clearly a better team than the Knicks. However, even without their superstar, the Knicks somehow managed to take Game 1 at Madison Square Garden. Game 2 was a different story, as it was still close at the end of the 4th quarter. However, the Knicks didn't seem to have an answer for Mason Plumlee and Hassan Whiteside's size on the inside, and the Pistons managed to secure a win pretty easily. They would take Game 3 as well. However, the Knicks managed to somehow pull off a win in Game 4, and this series seemed to be anybody's game. Game 5 would come down to the wire, and what's this? Oh my god, he's back. Westbrook is back. And with Russ back on the court, the Knicks seal this game pretty easily. However, the Pistons would come back in Game 6, so we would yet again be having a Game 7 conference final. With 2 minutes left, the Pistons were up by 5 and had possession, so things were looking pretty peachy for them. They got the rock into Kawhi, but he can't manage to hit an elbow jumper. New York comes back in transition and finds Oladipo spotted up, wide open for 3, and he knocks it in. The Pistons again go with the Kawhi ISO, but he gets trapped by the one and only Josh Jackson, and he throws it straight to Westbrook, who takes it up on a fast break. He finds Oladipo cutting in and feeds him for a dunk, tying the game at 98 apiece. Kawhi yet again takes the ball for himself, but he can't knock down a step back too. However, Jarrett Allen sneaks over to tap the miss back in. Westbrook takes it back and goes in for a drive, but gets fouled at the rim. He of course hits both his free throws, and we're yet again tied up. Detroit feeds Kawhi again, and he misses yet another jumper as he is absolutely ice cold. This gives the Knicks plenty of time to reset, and they decide to run this play through one of their vets who's been a loyal Knick since day one, David Lee. Lee was on the 09-10 team that got the second seed in the East, and despite them not making the playoffs for nearly a decade, he stuck with New York. And while he wasn't nearly the same player as he used to be, he was still a fantastic playmaker for a big man. He ditches the ball up to Westbrook, and sets a screen for him to get Russ wide open for a 3. He misses the shot, but Lee rolls straight to the rim and gets the easy putback, giving the Knicks the lead. Detroit calls a timeout and takes their time with the ball. They of course still go with Kawhi Leonard, who is currently being shut down by rookie Josh Jackson, who again is guarding the best player on the opposing team. Kawhi posts him up and goes for a turnaround fadeaway, and it goes in. The game is tied. The Knicks call their own timeout and decide to run their play through Westbrook. However, after Lee inbounds it, he cuts straight to the rim, and Russ threads the needle to find him wide open to the basket, and Lee lays it in. The Pistons still have 17 seconds to come back and score. However, Kawhi can't hit the shot off the screen, and the Knicks would defy all odds and make it to the NBA Finals. Watching how this team bonded together even with their best player gone, it certainly was not lost on Golden State how good this Knicks team was. If they could still butt heads with the Detroit Pistons without Russell Westbrook, now that they have him back, they were damn near unstoppable. At the same time, they only had one superstar. The Warriors, they had 2. And this finals matchup was truly anyone's ballgame. This finals is more than just a battle between the top 2 teams in the East and West. This rivalry extended much further than that. To really understand the beef these teams had, you have to go back to the year 2011, where the Oklahoma City Thunder were not only one of the top teams in the league, but also one of the youngest. And their 2 best players? Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. Despite the future being brighter than ever in Oklahoma, Durant decided to leave Russ and James Harden that offseason, and signed on to the Golden State Warriors, where he would end up being the Thunder in the second round 2 years later, to go on to win a championship in 2013. However, the very next year, the Thunder signed on star center Dwight Howard, and that trio would win a championship the very next year in 2014, while also sweeping the Warriors in 4 games in the Western Conference Finals. Westbrook won Finals MVP for the Thunder, and Durant would have won the Finals MVP for the Warriors if it hadn't been for him getting injured after just 3 games. So Monta Ellis had to pick up the slack. It seemed like these 2 teams just couldn't get away from facing each other, and the rivalry just increased each year. However, after Russ got his championship, he too left the Thunder to go to the Houston Rockets to see very little success, and Durant has been suffering with injuries off and on since, leading the Warriors to even miss the playoffs a few times. But 2018 was a different story, as both players are playing better than they ever have, and would yet again be facing each other in the playoffs, and this time in the NBA Finals. Game 1 wasn't looking good for the Knicks, as the Warriors would blow them out by nearly 40 points, and would hold Westbrook to just 20 points. Game 2 was a little closer, as Westbrook would seal the deal with this off-balance jumper to tie the series at 1 apiece. However, in Game 3, tragedy struck. The Knicks would be up by 3 with only 2 minutes to go. However, as Curry drove to the basket, he juked out Westbrook, who would twist his knee just a little bit too much, causing the tendonitis he was suffering from to flare up, and he'd have to sit out the rest of the game to receive medical attention. The Knicks call a timeout, and decide to give Brandon Knight a chance to fill in for Russ's absence. Knight has been a solid contributor for this team all year, and has been the spark plug off the bench this team has really needed. And in this big moment in the NBA Finals, Brandon Knight did not shy away, as he hits a clutch jump shot with the shot clock winding down to bring the Knicks back up by 3. On the very next play, he'd find Oladipo open to the paint. However, he couldn't finish over Tristan Thompson, and the Warriors would be heading back the other way with Gary Payton leading the way. But this wasn't the Gary Payton we're all familiar with. The perennial all-star from the Supersonics, whose court vision and perimeter defense was some of the best the NBA has ever seen? Yeah, no, this was his son. And I guess the court vision gene was not passed down, as Payton II opts for a contested jumper over passing to a wide open Kevin Durant in the paint. Like, just look how wide open he is, dude. Are you kidding me? The Knicks would come back on their own fast break, and Knight would again find Oladipo open, as this time he converts the layup. Frustrated by the last possession, Durant would take the ball to the basket himself this time, and would finish with the defense all over him. Apparently inspired by KD, Brandon Knight would make a drive for the rim himself, but was contested by Curry. But Brandon Knight didn't care, as he bullies everyone in the paint, casting Ed Davis aside as he snatched up his own miss, and gets fouled on the putback. He manages to score both his free throws, and puts the Knicks back up by 3. The Warriors decide to let Curry take the ball up the court, but because of his offensive gravity from being able to score from anywhere on the court, he gets triple teamed, and passed out to Gary Payton, who was wide open at the 3-point line. Well, I guess Payton Jr. did inherit something from his dad after all, as he bricks the open 3. Brandon Knight tries to push the tempo to get the opportunity to have the last possession of the game, but he gets slowed down by Kevin Durant, and with this miss leaves 22 seconds on the clock, meaning the Warriors will be closing this game out. The Warriors call a timeout, and make the interesting decision of not giving Curry the ball right away. Instead, they passed around, eventually finding Steph in the corner spotted up. However, Curry decides to fake out his defender and instead drive towards the rim, where he converts on a Euro with 9 seconds to go. The Knicks call a timeout, and decide to feed the hot hand in Brandon Knight, who is able to convert in both his free throws. Golden State is out of timeouts at this point, and have to rush the ball up the floor for a chance to win this game. Curry takes it up, but passed off to Kevin Durant once he passes half court. KD takes a few steps in and fakes a shot, but Josh Jackson doesn't fall for it. He puts up another fake, but Jackson still doesn't jump. There's now only 2 seconds left, so Durant really has to take the shot now, with Jackson all up in his face. The ball leaves his hands, arcs high up in the air, and
he shoots! Yes! With 1 second remaining!
The Knicks couldn't believe their eyes, and they knew the Warriors had all the momentum going into OT, and they knew without Westbrook, they wouldn't stand a chance. So after icing his knee, getting some quick last-minute rehab, Westbrook plays through the excruciating pain and comes back onto the court. As Westbrook opts for a fadeaway jumper over driving to the bucket, it was clear this injury was still affecting him significantly. It was made even more clear as he can't keep up with Curry's cut to the basket. And just like that, the Knicks will be down by 7, with only a little over a minute to go. However, Westbrook has never been known to give up, and he proves by outclassing Curry and finishing with a wide open layup. He then misses an elbow jumper, but Larry Sanders is able to put it back in. He then gets fouled, hits some free throws, and then follows it up with another elbow jumper that actually goes in. However, Russ's last-minute attempts to keep the Knicks alive would prove futile, and the Warriors end up winning Game 3. I wish I could say that Westbrook was able to push through the pain and make this series a battle, but despite his best efforts, he was still clearly very injured, and the Warriors would coast through the next 2 games to win their second championship in 6 years. It was a bittersweet victory, as things could have ended up very differently if Westbrook managed to stay healthy. But in the end, he didn't, and Stephen Curry ends up winning the 2018 Finals MVP. It was clear that this Warriors team was no joke, and if they could find a better shooting guard than Gary Payton to be in their starting lineup, they would be a nearly impossible team to take down. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens next season. Thank you all so much for watching this video all the way through. I had a lot of fun making it. I'm so glad I finally released it. I can't believe the series is so close to being completed. There's only 4 more seasons to go till we're all caught up. I've actually not yet recorded the 18-19 season as I'm making this video. So if you want to see what happens next, go follow me on Twitch at BigBirdBallin to see who will come out on top next season. Personally, I'm betting on the Celtics to finally get their shit together and pull out the historic run we've been waiting for them to go on. There's honestly a lot of teams that can make it. You never really know with 2K. If a team that's the best player is DeAndre Jordan can make it to the finals, truly anything can happen. Also, if you want to get notified when I'll be streaming in the following seasons, and just keep up with what I'm doing in general, follow me on my Twitter at BigBirdBallin, or join my Discord, both of which are in the description box below. That being said, that's the end of this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.